when actually she did it because of my manager, my label, my A&R, and all of the...
Beyonce, you changed my life, so thank you so much.
Because I was completely rooting for her. I feel like it was her time to win. Obviously the visual is very...
well, no, it was absolutely framed that way. It was written that way. It was not my lyrics, was not my writing.
For years, the entertainment industry has been built on whispers. Not headlines, whispers. The kind of rumors people pass quietly at after-parties, in studio hallways, behind closed dressing room doors, and during late-night phone calls that somehow never make it to the public. At least not officially. Because in Hollywood, and especially in the music industry, power doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it moves in silence. Sometimes it looks like admiration. Sometimes it sounds like praise. And sometimes, it hides behind a simple thank you. But every once in a while, a rumor becomes so loud, so persistent, and so impossible to ignore that people start asking themselves one uncomfortable question. What if it's true? And for years, one of the biggest whispers in the industry has centered around one woman.
Lemonade. So a piece of me did die inside as a Beyonce stan, I'm not gonna lie.
Power God. This is why Adele has to get on the podium and thank Beyonce.
I definitely want to say thank you to Beyonce.
Beyonce. To millions of fans, she is untouchable. A global icon. A once-in-a-generation performer. A woman whose talent, discipline, and influence transformed her from a member of Destiny's Child into one of the most powerful entertainers alive. Her name alone carries weight. Her performances become cultural events. Her albums become movements. Her silence speaks louder than most people's interviews. She is not just famous. She is institution-level famous. But with that level of power comes something else. Fear. And for years, people have quietly asked the same question. Are female artists in the industry actually afraid of Beyonce? It sounds ridiculous at first, even disrespectful. Because how could one of the most celebrated artists in modern history be at the center of something so dark? But then people point to moments, patterns, careers that suddenly shifted, women who seemed to disappear, award speeches that felt strange. And somehow, every road leads back to the same unforgettable night. The Grammy Awards. More specifically, the 2017 Grammys. The night Adele defeated Beyonce for Album of the Year. At first glance, it looked like a normal awards show upset. Surprising, yes. Dramatic, definitely. But still normal. Adele had released 25, a commercial giant. Beyonce had released Lemonade, a critically acclaimed masterpiece many believed should have won. The internet exploded. Fans argued. Think pieces were written. People debated race, legacy, artistry, and Grammy politics. But what made the moment unforgettable wasn't just who won. It was how Adele reacted.
Very, very grateful having won it. But I felt the need because I love her. Because
and thank you, Beyonce. You're amazing. Yeah.
Because instead of celebrating like someone who had just won the highest honor in music, she looked devastated. She walked to that stage emotional, visibly overwhelmed, and almost immediately turned the spotlight away from herself and onto Beyonce. She called Lemonade monumental. She called Beyonce the artist of her life. She said a piece of her died inside because she wanted Beyonce to win. She spoke like someone apologizing, not someone accepting victory. At the time, people called it humility, plus respect. But years later, the internet looked back at that speech with a completely different lens. Because some people didn't see admiration. They saw fear. They saw a woman making sure the queen understood one thing. I'm not your enemy. I'm not your competition. Please don't see me as a threat. And suddenly that speech stopped looking sweet. It started looking strategic. Because by then, social media had already created one of the strangest running jokes in celebrity culture. Why does everyone thank Beyonce? It became a meme. Every award show, every acceptance speech, every interview, people noticed celebrities constantly bringing her up. Sometimes it made sense. Sometimes it absolutely did not. People joked that even if someone won Best Supporting Actor in a movie Beyonce had nothing to do with, they would still somehow end the speech with, "And thank you, Beyonce." At first it was funny. Then people started making compilation videos. And that's when the jokes turned dark. Because those compilations didn't just include random thank you speeches. They included women. Women whose careers had stalled. Women surrounded by old rumors. Women connected, fairly or unfairly, to stories involving Jay-Z. Women like Aaliyah. Women like Lisa Lopez. Women like Maya. Women like Blu Cantrell.
Say thank you to
Beyonce, just so that way we keep the dance community safe. Everybody, Beyonce, you got...
Would be the year that they would kind of go with the tide. And of course...
And once those names entered the conversation, the internet did what it always does. It built mythology. Suddenly, every coincidence became evidence. Every career slowdown became sabotage. Every tragic loss became conspiracy. And right in the center of it all was a song by J. Cole. She Knows. That song sent people into full detective mode. Because in the lyrics, J. Cole references names like Aaliyah, Lisa Lopez, and Michael Jackson. 3 legendary artists. 3 tragic deaths. 3 names that have long been surrounded by speculation. And because the title was She Knows, people online became convinced the she was secretly referring to Beyonce. No evidence. No confirmation. Just pure internet conspiracy. But conspiracy theories don't survive because they're proven. They survive because they feel believable to the people telling them. And once enough people repeat something, it becomes cultural folklore. Then came blogger Storm Monroe, who threw gasoline on the fire. He claimed the industry works like royalty. There is always a chosen king. There is always a chosen queen. According to him, before Beyonce, that throne belonged to Madonna. But now Beyonce had inherited it. And if you were another artist, especially another woman, you were expected to acknowledge that power. Publicly. You praised her. You thanked her. You gave tribute. Not because you wanted to. Because that was the rule. Especially if you were successful enough to be seen as competition. Especially if your name was Adele. Storm took things even further by making controversial claims about spirituality and symbolism, particularly surrounding the Lemonade era.
New, and and the Grammys are very traditional, but I just thought this year...
He referenced the famous yellow dress, the visuals, the imagery. He pointed to connections with Ashen, the Yoruba deity associated with love, beauty, femininity, and rivers. Fans noticed it too. The symbolism was undeniable. But where some people saw artistic inspiration and cultural reference, others saw something darker. They turned spirituality into suspicion, art into accusation. And suddenly Beyonce wasn't just being called powerful. She was being called mystical, dangerous, untouchable in ways far beyond music. That only made the Adele Grammy moment look stranger. Because Lemonade, the same album filled with those visuals and symbols, was the very project that lost to 25. And when Adele stood there crying, practically handing the win back, people started asking, was she being gracious? Or was she trying to survive? Because she didn't stop with the speech. She later revealed she went backstage to Beyoncé's dressing room, personally, to thank her again, to explain why she believed Beyoncé deserved the award more, to reassure her. That is the part people never forgot. Because admiration is one thing. This felt like submission. It felt like someone trying to make absolutely sure there would be no bad blood. And that's when Wendy Williams said the quiet part out loud. She didn't frame it as fear. She framed it as jealousy. She claimed Beyoncé was jealous of Adele. Not because Adele danced better. Not because she had bigger performances. But because Adele had something Wendy believed was impossible to manufacture. A voice. A voice that needed no help. Wendy said Adele belonged in the same category as Aretha Franklin, Celine Dion, Dionne Warwick, and Mariah Carey. Singers whose raw voices were the event. No heavy production needed. And she went further. She said people found Adele more relatable. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She wasn't performing perfection. She looked like someone people recognized. She lived like someone people understood. Meanwhile, Beyoncé had become almost mythological. Carefully curated. Carefully protected. Brilliant, yes, but distant. And Wendy believed that difference mattered. At the time, fans attacked her for it. They called her bitter, messy, jealous. But years later, many people started saying something uncomfortable. What if Wendy wasn't wrong? Because history seemed to show a pattern. Women who found themselves in public conflict with Beyoncé often seemed to lose more than just an argument. Take Keri Hilson. Her career should have gone differently. She had the voice, the hits, the image, the momentum. She was positioned to be huge. Then came the leaked remix of Turning Me On. And everything changed. The lyrics were brutal. Your vision cloudy if you think that you the best. You can dance, she can sing. She needs to move it to the left. That last line made it obvious to everyone. It sounded like a direct shot at Beyoncé and her song, Irreplaceable. Even if you wanted to deny it, the reference was hard to ignore. Then came the infamous magazine incident. Keri Hilson was asked to hold a magazine for photos. She glanced at the cover, saw Beyonce and Jay-Z, and refused. That moment spread everywhere. The internet decided the war was real. And from there, her public image changed fast. Later, Keri Hilson explained that the diss record wasn't even her choice. She claimed industry executives pressured her into releasing it. But explanations don't travel as fast as controversy. By then, fans had already judged. And many people still point to that moment as the beginning of her career decline. Then there was Blu Cantrell. Another woman with momentum. Another artist with serious potential. At one point, multiple labels were fighting over her signature. She had heat. She had talent. She had the kind of attention artists dream about. But timing matters. And in 2003, the exact same year Blu Cantrell was trying to dominate, Beyonce was stepping into her solo superstar era. There wasn't much room for competition. Then rumors surfaced that Blu Cantrell and Jay-Z had allegedly been involved. That alone was enough to make the story explode. Even old interviews were dissected. Every facial expression, every awkward answer, every rumor became fuel. And once people started connecting those rumors to lyrics from Beyonce's music, especially Signs, the speculation only got worse. Then reports surfaced claiming Blu Cantrell was struggling, allegedly fearful, and dealing with serious personal instability. Another career. Another cautionary tale. Another name people added to the list. Then came Maya. And this one refused to disappear for years. She and Jay-Z collaborated on Best of Me Part 2, and fans immediately noticed the chemistry. That was enough. Rumors of an affair spread fast. Years later, during a performance of Resentment, Beyonce changed lyrics in a way that reignited everything. She emphasized lines that made people believe the rumors were true. Then media outlets claimed insiders said Beyonce had discovered an affair years earlier. One article reportedly disappeared almost as quickly as it was published. But once something hits the internet, it never truly disappears. It just mutates. Maya eventually addressed it herself. Clearly. Directly. She denied everything. Never did. Never was. Never will. She insisted she respected marriage too much for that kind of mess. But according to reports from people around her, the damage had already been done. Blacklisting whispers. Industry doors closing. Fans sending threats. A reputation being rewritten by rumors she said were false. And once again people pointed to the same idea. If you get placed opposite Beyonce in the public imagination, the consequences can follow you for years. That's why people now revisit Adele's Grammy speech with fresh eyes. Maybe she understood the rules. Maybe she had watched what happened to women before her. Maybe she knew exactly how quickly admiration could turn into rivalry. And maybe she decided she would never be positioned as the villain in that story. Because in Hollywood, perception is everything. Sometimes more important than truth. Sometimes more powerful than talent. And if perception said you were challenging the throne, it didn't matter what your intentions were. The narrative would choose for you. That's why people say Adele didn't just thank Beyonce. She protected herself. She made sure the world, and maybe Beyonce herself, knew that she was not trying to take anything. She was not coming for the crown. She was simply paying respect. Or at least that's how it needed to look. And maybe that's why Wendy Williams kept returning to this topic. Because one thing about Wendy, people love to call her messy. But even her critics admitted something frustrating. She often said things people laughed at first, and believed later. She had a talent for spotting the tension before everyone else admitted it existed. She would say what others whispered. And in this case she kept pointing to the same thing. Something about that Adele moment didn't feel normal. It felt loaded. It felt careful. It felt like a woman trying to survive politics far bigger than a trophy. So now, years later, the question still hangs in the air. Are female artists actually scared of Beyonce? Is there really an invisible system of power surrounding her? Or has the internet simply taken ordinary industry politics and turned them into mythology? Is this about control? Fan obsession? Jealousy? Coincidence? Or just the unavoidable consequence of being the biggest woman in music for so long? Because the bigger the star, the darker the stories people create around them. And maybe that's the real truth here. Not that Beyonce is secretly pulling strings, but that people cannot accept power in a woman without turning it into something supernatural. When you look at the speeches, the careers, the rumors, and the silence, you understand why the whispers never stop. And maybe that's why that Grammy moment still lingers. Because sometimes the most revealing thing isn't who wins, it's how they react after.